Hi, my name's Stu Whitaker, and I'm standing by the George Washington Memorial Parkway, overlooking the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. You may be able to see the George Washington Monument in the background. You also may hear the noise of the automobiles going by on the highway, and we may get an airplane going overhead as well. I want to take you for a little tour of Northern Virginia and talk to you about global warming and climate change. Awareness of global warming and climate change has skyrocketed recently, in part due to the efforts of Al Gore and his movie An Inconvenient Truth, work done by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, known as the IPCC, the Nobel Peace Prize having been awarded to Gore and the IPCC for their efforts, as well as efforts by many other individuals and organizations. Experts tell us there's still time to act in order to avoid global disaster, and they've outlined actions that can be taken to prevent this disaster from coming true. Yet while awareness of the risks and solutions has increased, experts can't tell us whether or not there will be the public support and political will to take the actions that are necessary. The Kyoto Protocol, adopted by 172 nations in the European Economic Community, is the key international mechanism under which nations have agreed to try to limit their emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. While 172 nations have signed on to the Kyoto Protocol, the truth is that 85% of the emissions are generated by just 15 nations. The United States emits more greenhouse gases than any other nations, and yet is not a signatory to the Kyoto Protocol. This has led some people to label the U.S. as a rogue nation. The next round of international climate change negotiations is scheduled to begin December 2007 in Bali. According to UN official Ivo de Boer, success at these future negotiations will likely lead to a 50% reduction in future emissions. Failure in this round of negotiations will lead to a 50% increase in emissions, as well as, by implication, environmental and economic disaster, leading to further global instability. Sokolow and others have identified 15 areas or opportunities, known as wedges, for climate change mitigation. One of those 15 wedges is a reduction in automobile use by telecommuting, mass transit, and urban design. Come with me now as we examine mass transit and urban design a little more closely in Northern Virginia. Okay. That's a wrap. We're going to stop. Hi. I'm standing now by the Ballston Metro Station in Arlington County, a couple miles southwest of where we were just a little while ago. Arlington County has a population of 200,000 people with a median household income of $67,000. This line of the metro station was completed over 20 years ago, and you can see an entrance to the metro over my right shoulder. Pedestrians walk about 3 miles an hour, and transportation experts have found that people are willing to walk about half a mile, which takes them about 10 minutes, to get to public transit and for other errands. Let's call this the magic green half mile. Beyond a half mile, though, people tend to get in their cars. Arlington County has a total of 6 metro stations. This Ballston station is one of 5, along with Roslyn, Clarendon, and Virginia Square, that were specially designed and built to encourage economic and residential development in an environment that was more walkable and less automobile friendly than normal. The Metro Transit Authority and Arlington did 2 things to achieve their objectives. First, the stations were built relatively close together. Standing in between any 2 of these 5 stations, you're never more than half a mile away from one of the stations. Second, Arlington allowed and encouraged high-density development close to each of the metro stations so that more people live and work within that magic green half mile. You can see the success of this design in the high-density residential and commercial developments that surround me. This design has come to serve as a model for urban transit development around the country. Thank you. I'm standing now at the West Falls Church Metro Station in Fairfax, Virginia, about 6 miles west of the Ballston Station in Arlington, where we were just a little while ago. Fairfax County has a population of 1 million and a median household income of $83,000. One thing you'll notice immediately about this station is that it sits in the middle of a major commuter roadway called I-66. Though you can't tell from this camera shot, another thing you would notice if you were here is that there isn't a single high-rise building anywhere within eyesight, much less within the magic green half mile. As a result, just about everyone who uses this station also has to use an automobile to get to and from the station. While there isn't any point second-guessing the original design of this metro station, it seems important to look at the future expansion plans for this mass transit system in terms of the extent to which it may or may not help mitigate climate change. According to independent studies, the Washington metropolitan area has some of the worst traffic congestion in the nation, rivaling or surpassing even Los Angeles. Many people in this area are eagerly anticipating the extension of this metro system because it's expected to help ease the area's traffic congestion. This extension is to be paid for by federal, state, and local funds. However, this next phase of the effort, an 11.6-mile extension, is in jeopardy in part because its price tag has escalated to $2.7 billion. According to a recent report from the U.S. Department of Transportation, the project is now close to failing the federal government's cost-effectiveness guidelines. One measure of cost-effectiveness is the cost per rider of the system. The cost per rider of the system, of course, can be reduced by reducing the project costs. It can also be reduced or it can be improved by increasing the number of riders. There's been considerable discussion about ways to decrease costs, but very little discussion about ways to increase the number of riders. Projects such as this take years to develop, and this project was begun long before there was widespread recognition of the danger of climate change. Consequently, there's been practically no discussion of this project in terms of its impact on associated automobile usage and global climate change. We've reached the last stop on this little tour, and I'm standing now on a bridge on Wheelie Avenue, the location of the last of 5 stations planned for this next phase of the metro extension. This extension is planned to run right down the middle of another major commuter roadway, the Dulles Airport Access Road, the detour through a major commercial hub known as Tyson's Corner, and then to continue on down that same roadway to this location. The planned extension does not envision high-density development around any of its stations. Though not entirely comparable, the 6 stations in Arlington are an average of 1.1 miles apart compared to the average separation of 2.3 miles in this planned extension. As a result of the project's overall design, ridership levels will be lower than they might otherwise be, thereby elevating the cost per rider and contributing to the low project rating developed by the federal government. In addition, this design will not result in as great a reduction in automobile usage as it might, because riders will use automobiles to get to and from the station. Solving the climate change crisis can't be done by international organizations alone. Local communities can make positive contributions to climate change mitigation today without waiting for international organizations or federal mandates. In order to solve this climate change crisis, everyone must develop a greater awareness of the impact that their own actions and decisions have on the problem. What we've seen here is just one illustration of the role that local communities play in the climate change crisis. Investments in projects such as mass transit are made in political environments that are subject to powerful political interests. Making globally sound investment decisions will take education, judgment, and strong leadership. Valli Moosa, president of the World Conservation Union, recently pointed out that developing nations are keenly aware of the efforts that other nations are and are not making to solve the climate change crisis. Many have asked why developed nations such as the U.S. haven't immediately adopted simple measures such as hybrid automobile fleets and energy-efficient buildings. That's a question worth considering. Thanks for watching. I'm Stu Whitaker.